right, so now we're gonna talk about apps, right? This is a conversation that is near and dear to our heart because we entrepreneurs, man. So we try to do everything. It's more money in, like money
and that's key too. Like we've tried and we failed a bunch of times.
Yeah,
got to.
So we had an idea. Told you it was a social media page we started. We did a lot of different stuff, but one idea that we had was to have an app, right?
Yeah.
And it was an app. The idea was pretty good in I guess it was good in context, but it was about music for DJs.
Yeah, it was kind of like getting rid of like the traditional way people DJ when people bought crates to their sets and had to find records. We had like an idea to create a cloud service for DJs where they could create their sets and all they needed was Wi-Fi at the venue,
right?
And they could pull up their sets wherever they went. It would
no Serato,
right, exactly. Yeah. And like now that's happening. Like Serato offers that, but like a few years ago nobody was doing that.
Right.
So we were like, oh, we got an idea that can work, and it was myself, Rashad, Jamal, Mike again, and Paul. Shout out to Paul. And it it started off as a great idea,
right?
And we wanted to develop an app. It's still in the App Store, I believe. Jock Drive is the name. And we learned some very valuable lessons during that process.
So the problem with, all right, I'll give you the quick version. The problem with us trying to develop an app is that we had no idea what we were doing.
Oh yeah, no, that's a very welcome to the club. That's
problem one.
Yeah. So we had an idea. We had no idea about how to develop the technology, how to develop an app. So long story, I'll give you the quick version because you're gonna talk about apps. But we put like $30,000 into an app, right? All right, let me back up a little bit. So we got quotes for the app. We drew up the idea. We got quotes for the app in America, and it was like $80,000, $90,000.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
To develop. So we like, no, that's too much. So one of the members in the group had a connection with a developer in India. I don't know how we found. Shout out to India before I tell the story.
100%. So we are too. So yeah, shout out 100%. I got stories.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Nothing against India, but
at all.
Man. All right. So we picked developers in India because they're cheaper and they're very good with technology and they do a good job, we thought. Okay. So they have the app for about 2 weeks and they completely botch it. It's terrible. It comes back to us and it's like misspellings. It's like
website is ridiculous.
It doesn't work. So now me and Mike have to do Skype conference calls with the guys in India. The problem is that India is like 14 hours ahead, right? So we're like going conference calls at like 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like 3 in the afternoon there, right? And we're on the phone and I could barely understand what they're actually saying. And they're saying that they're going to do it better this time, right? So there's like different stages that we have to pay them, like $5,000 for the first part, then $5,000 for the second part.
Yeah,
so we're
tranches,
like, So we gave them like 2 different payments of like $10,000, and they botched it both times. And we were like 15,000 in with no prototype, nothing. It was like, so then, what I didn't know either, business is all about learning experience.
100%.
In India, they have the holidays, but the holidays last for like
Diwali,
3 weeks.
So that's the holiday.
Yeah, no,
so the guy told me, he's like, yo, I'm going on holiday. So I'm like, okay, I think he'll be back on Thursday. It's like a Wednesday. And they didn't come back for a month. It's like a holiday for like last 3 weeks.
Yes, it is.
So we're just waiting for 3 weeks and they're
money spent
on holiday, right? So then we pay another Indian developer to
correct it,
to fly out there. So they're in like one part of India, right? So we have a relationship with another Indian developer. He's like, okay, I know I could fix it. I could go to these guys.
Right. We had to pay for his flight.
Yeah, we had to pay for his flight.
I'm just happy I've learned so much because I'm hearing all this and I have like 96 red flags.
We paid for his flight to go find people.
This guy was running one of our friends' sites, so he was supposed to be credible. So he's like, okay, look, I know these guys. I can go there. I talk the lingo. I can straighten this out. So we pay his flight. He's like, if we pay his flight, do we pay his hotel?
No, because it was a one-day trip.
Yeah, one-day trip. We pay his flight. We pay him. He goes out there. He says he speaks to them. Nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. So now we're getting frustrated because now it's like 2 months in. We paid like $15,000 and we have nothing to show for it, pretty much. Nothing.
No, we can download the app, but it does nothing.
No, it does nothing.
Yeah.
So then after that part, we go back and forth with them and they just like stop working.
Yeah.
They stopped working.
Completely.
No, they stopped. So now it's like, okay,
We need somebody to do this.
they're in India. They took our money. We have no product.
Bet. All right.
And then he said, the second developer said, oh, I can do it.
In India.
Yeah.
Is it another Indian?
No, the same guy we flew out. He was like, I can do it. So we're like, all right,
So
well, it's going to cost us this.
Oh,
Yeah,
everyone's always going to say
So the guy that flew out to talk to the guys, he's like, okay, look, I can do it for you. It'll cost like $5,000, I think.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it either. He does it, but it's like not done properly. So then he comes back and he's like, look, actually, this is going to cost way more
Then we
because
talk.
it's way more involved and you got to do more tech and all kinds of stuff. So the long story short of it is that we wasted $30,000 and we had nothing to show for it.
Full transparency.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We got an app that you can probably search that does nothing.
I was gonna say, yeah, like that just lets me know how much I've grown because, like, hearing all this, like, there was 47 things that I was like, oh, did you do like, oh my god? But that's just part of the thing because I mean, I when I first started on this journey, I really was just like, oh, boom, so I get a developer and we're rocking. I tell you how to make the app and I get it. Like, it is so much more than that, and you start realizing why Silicon Valley is what it is.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So
But-
now.
but that- we know, it goes back to what we said last episode, though, right? Sometimes when you try to take shortcuts and pay for cheaper labor, it's going to be a more expensive thing.
Yeah.
At the end, right?
That's very, very true.
Oh, 100%.
We learned from that lesson.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I always say this is not just in getting cheap, but I always say,
Yeah.
like, free is more expensive than paying for anything. Because it's just like what you're investing to somebody else to do something for you for free.
Right.
Sometimes it's a heavier burden down the road than just paying to get quality things done by
Valuable
by
lesson.
someone who's quality at their job.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, like, my whole tech team, our whole tech team is in India, but it is such a different story. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's
All
get
right,
into it.
all right,
Get into it, Cole.
All right, so Cole, my man Cole has a dope app. We're gonna talk about the details of the app. Quiktract is
Yes.
what it's called.
Yes, yes.
But before we go into the details of the app, all right, let's back up. So we failed miserably in the app world, right? But you're actually succeeding in the app world, right? So okay. So first off, how did you come up with the idea to start an app?
So my background in anything before all this, I'm way more of a creative guy. I made clothes. I wrote songs. Like that was just my life. That's just what I did. I was farthest thing from tech savvy. All of those things. And so one day, a buddy of mine, Adam, he's a great illustrator, and so he was working at a design agency, just getting freelanced out. And we pulled up to go get his check. This was about 2 years ago, and I'm just sitting in his car. I'm chilling, just waiting for him to come back in. He comes back in. He's hot. He's absolutely livid. He's like punching the steering wheel. I'm like, bro, like, what's up? Like, are you okay? And he tells me that they just said that they weren't going to pay him, and they shorted him like $850, like out of his check. And I'm sitting there, and I go, hey, well, like, I mean, do you have like a contract with them or anything? And he's like, nah, man, I don't. And I was like, he's like looking through his text messages, like he's like sifting through to see like where the deal was and whatnot. And I was like, well, why didn't you have a contract? And I swear to you, it was like getting hit by like a lightning bolt in that moment. Because I was like, I've done business like this 100 times. I've done so many things where, it was just whatever, handshake, and, it's all good until it's not. It's worked, so many times where, it kind of reinforces the bad habit because you don't even care. Because you're like, whatever, that's my man's, we're good, we'll figure it out. And I was like, well, there has to be like a fast way to just create a contract on the fly. Like, I know there's a DocuSign, but you got to upload something, or that's if you're buying a house or something like that. It's a little bit of a thicker process. And so I just start looking on the car ride back home from that place. I'm looking in my phone, looking through the app store. Because I'm typing in contract, I'm typing in agreement, I'm doing all these things. So I'm like, there has to be something that does this. And everything is like upload a PDF to sign. My whole point was, there has to be a way to streamline this process, because the thing about contracts is in general is, you're signing, a contract to be on a sports team. Yeah, it's going to be about this thick, but all that really matters is the terms on there.
Yeah.
But, if I'm asking someone to make a logo for me for $500, it doesn't need to be the same 20-page packet. You know what I'm saying? All that matters is, what is going to get paid, scope of work, deadline, is there a deposit? As long as those things get straightened out, realistically, that's the terms of any binding agreement. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking through it. I can't see anything that is the vision in that moment. I tell Adam, I'm like, bro, like, what if there was an app for this called Quiktract? Swear, that was the first thought in my head. I saw the color purple, like all of it. And I just kind of like, I forget, but we just let it be, go home. I go home, and I remember like a day later, I call my mom and I'm talking to her, and I just tell her the idea, not really thinking about it or anything like that. Just, hey, this is what I was thinking about. She was like, you should see if that domain name is available.
Yeah. So
that's the first thing I did is I looked, it was completely available. So I was like, oh, okay. So I bought the domain name off GoDaddy for like 99 cents because I was just like, whatever, never going to do anything with this, but it's fine. And then like about 48 hours after that happens, I swear, like, it just feels like a movie. Like, I just get up out of bed and I immediately see like the process. Like, I see how it's supposed to look. I'm like, it has to be done in like 60 seconds. Like, you have to be able to create an agreement super fast and streamline it all, because what we're at war with is not contract, because you could always get a contract if you want to. You go print something out, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
The problem is the psychology behind the contract. If you ask your friend to sign a contract for something, could be for anything, it feels heavy-handed. There's almost like an element of distrust attached to that. If you're just like, hey man, can you watch my dog for the weekend? Here, sign this contract. You're like, oh bro, like,
you don't trust me.
What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? So that was always the first step. I learned how to animate in Photoshop off the University of YouTube, and
it's a graduate.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, summa cum laude. And then, and so I do that, stay up all night figuring out like how it looks. And it was, believe me, if I could redo it again, I'd be like, dude, use Adobe XD. Like, it's going to be so much faster. Yeah. But that comes with the learning process. And then over months and months of time later, it was one of those things where I just couldn't put down. I have absolutely no resources. I am not in any way, shape, or form qualified to do any of this. I just have an idea that can't leave my head.
Right.
So then from there, I get up with a buddy of mine, Shane, who then has a friend named Nick. Nick went to school with him out at UCLA. He was originally from India. I meet up with them, and Nick, essentially, he starts understanding the vision, and we actually start putting some wireframes and stuff together.
So this is like your friend that had a friend.
Yeah. Like he starts getting the vision, and we start putting some wireframes together. And I'm just paying him out of pocket. At this point, he's not even a part of the team or anything like that. I just remembered, you want to talk about American prices. I remember he flipped one thing to me. He was like, yeah, it's $3,000. And I was just like, for this, like, I was like, I could click 3 things. Like, what are you talking about? And then that's when eventually, we started becoming friends. And I was like, bro, like, let's just do this. Like, let's just really go in on this. Yeah. And fast forward from there, I actually, we're starting to get a little more momentum just with the idea. We have no real infrastructure, no real business understanding.
So how many people on the team at this point?
So at this point, there was 3 individuals.
Okay. So this is before you have the app.
This is before any.
You're just thinking about the idea, building out the idea.
This is like I said. It's there's no resources at this point. It's a guy who knows how to make a wireframe, essentially.
Okay.
And so then from there, so I have an uncle, Lee. I haven't talked to him in a couple years. He was a very, very, very smart guy. And originally, I call him just for some guidance. I'm like, hey, man, like, I have this idea. I'm kind of like over my head. Do you have like a couple hours to just talk to me through this and see how we could kind of, tell me if I have anything here. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys who, if essentially he's going to tell you if the idea sucks. Mm-hmm. And, if it's good, he might just say like, oh, it's good. So that's what I was kind of like leaning into. Yeah. And so I ended up talking to him about it. And is going from there. All while this is going on, Nick goes back to India for a little while. Nick goes back to India, comes back for like Christmas break. He gets stopped at the border. They ask to look at his phone. They look at his phone. They see our conversations about Quiktract, and they're like, "Oh, you don't have an entrepreneur visa. You have a student visa."
Oh.
So they don't let him into the country. They send him back to India. So he's in India still.
Wow.
Like I said, yeah. So that's why I said like our tech team is in India.
Oh, he's still there?
Yeah, he's still there right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
From India?
He's from India.
All right. Okay. So you have one of your guys get stopped at the border.
Yeah.
And then the other. So now it's you and your guy.
So it's myself, Nick, and it's Lee at this time.
So
Okay.
two here, one in India.
Yeah. No,
So-
so one's in Ohio. We're all sporadic. One Ohio. I'm in LA. Nick is in India right now.
All right. So okay. So you have the idea first. You reach out to your friends. You explain to them the idea. They like the idea.
Right.
Y'all gonna start working on it. Nick can't come back to America.
Yeah.
He's stuck in India.
Right.
Okay. So from that point, how do you go in towards developing that?
So what happens is and I got to give a huge shout out here to Lee and the eventual partner that we brought on, Russ, as well. So Lee's in his 40s. Russ, I think, is in his 60s now. And the thing about, and they both have, over 20, 30 years of real business experience.
How do you know these people?
So Lee is my uncle.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So like I said, he's my uncle, but it was one of those things where it wasn't like we were always like super close. I initially was just like, hey man, like I have this idea. I would love to run it by you.
Yeah.
Did you call your uncle Lee?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Lee.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lee.
Absolutely. So we just talk and see what happens. We kind of start realizing that his background is more in line than we would even originally had planned. I mean, he had this one company called CIN, which essentially was, they served as the bankruptcy data information for over 17,000 law firms.
So he has a little bit of history in
100%. Like he's made his money, you know? And so that was one of those things where I was like, hey, let's just talk this out. It starts feeling way bigger than me at this point, because at this point he's like, nah, like I want to, let's do this. Like I want to rock. Let's actually get this going.
Yeah.
And then we start from there. And a huge component of this, which was a very big struggle for me, like I'll be flat out honest and transparent about it, is I fly up to Ohio to essentially walk through it all and see if we could make a partnership work. And I sit there and look at this whiteboard that's just full of, so many of the technological hurdles that we have to jump. And, this is way more his space at this time.
So this is Lee's vision board.
This is his board. And I'm looking at it because it's the same schematics that I've put out, but now it's this is the actualization process of it all. And I sit there and I go, oh my God, this is so much bigger than me, And in that moment, I realized something that was really painful, which I was like, in order for this vision to go somewhere, I might have to curb some of my ego in order to make this happen. So what I do is I say, you know what? I'm going to make you the CEO. I'm going to make you the CEO of this. Like I said, I founded this company. I'm going to make you the CEO of this company. I'm going to be the chief brand officer. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stick with what I know how to do.
So, all right. So you start the company, right?
Yeah.
LLC?
No, C Corp.
C Corp. You start a C Corp. You tell your uncle about the idea. Your uncle has a lot more business experience than you do.
Right.
So you just have the idea in your head. Your uncle, he thinks about it. He's like, nah, this can actually do something crazy.
Yeah.
He puts it on a vision board of this is, when you see it,
Execution steps.
you realize that his vision for your idea is more advanced than your vision.
It was the here's how of my idea.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So
Which it built, like I said, it built out to such a more collaborative place after the fact.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it was so oh, I just thought we hire developers and the app comes out. You know what I'm saying?
So that process of saying, you know what, this is my idea, you're going to be the CEO of this. How long did you wrestle with that?
Truth be told, it was, so I fly home from being out there, and I remember I was talking to my mom, and I wrestled with it for a little bit, but it was one of those things where you can't deny it. It's such an obvious thing where I'm like, okay, well, as a role player, if you got if you got LeBron essentially being like, yeah, I'll play on your team, but like you can't be point guard. I want to be point guard.
Yeah.
You kind of got to go, okay, well, do I want to win a championship? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that takes a lot of
humility right there.
It takes a lot of humility to do, because that's like even going on Shark Tank, right? Where it's like your baby that you gave birth to, and you pretty much letting somebody else take it from here. I'll take it from here.
I want 50%.
Like,
well, no. So what happens is so like I said, I very much in that moment. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I'm scared. I'm trying to figure everything out.
did he ask to be CEO, or you just offered that?
No. So what happened was it kind of was like a meet in the middle, where it was like. It was a conclusion that had to get reached on both ends, because it was one of those things where it's like, one, I couldn't have been, because, and this is one thing that I want anyone to take away from this. This is probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life because of this, is you don't know what you don't know. Is point blank period. There are so many phases of life where you don't know what you don't know. You don't even know the question to ask to get the answer for something down the road. Experience is the biggest thing in the world. Like you guys said, you didn't know what you didn't know about making an app until you made one unsuccessfully. Now you know something.
Well, you know what the thing about it, not to cut you off, but
for sure.
If honestly, if we would have had mentors,
right?
If we would have had somebody in the field, we might have been successful.
100%.
And that's the problem a lot of times, is that we don't have mentorship, right? So we just winging it as we go.
Yeah, we didn't have an Uncle Lee.
For sure. Yeah.
If we had somebody like that, but that's great that you utilized your resource. You have to utilize. A wise man utilizes all tools that's available to him.
100%. It's a huge component of this is, and that was one of the things, that was the conversation that we really had when we were like, all right, boom, let's lock in, let's really do this. It was me understanding, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
You can see further than just me right here, but I know that this idea is so strong, and I feel this so strongly, and I know that my skills will be best served
in this area.
That it's like I said, we could say humility, but at the end of the day, like I just truly believe that when you are fortunate enough to be in that mode of creativity where like things are just clicking, it's just almost like a lob at that point. You're just playing ball, and you're just like, okay, like go ahead.
All Eagles put to the side.
Yeah.
All right. So you have the business structure in place.
Right.
You established that your uncle's the CEO.
Yeah.
You're the chief marketing officer.
I'm chief marketing and chief brand. Yes.
What's the other guy's role?
So we got Russ Russell, who was another of the older guys who he'd been in business with my uncle for.
His name is Russ Russell.
Russ Russell. we got names on this team, and so he's been in business, over 40 years at this point. He's been, he had been working around with my uncle, I think, for a little over 20.
Okay.
But so these are individuals who know the game very well, and he was the first person to say, is like, look, a lot of the times when you go into a VC situation or down the road, you need some gray hair in the room. Someone with no experience.
VC being
venture capitalist.
Okay. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, but just put this in anything, I think that a great point, to piggyback way on the on your social media stuff that you were saying about how start with what you have. Huge part of making an app is an MVP, minimum viable product. So it's like, it's the same thing with making videos, where it's like you have to make content some way, because no one's going to give you all the equipment if they don't have something to go off of. And so that's how like app making works, is I have to show you the slideshow that then turns into the wireframes. I have to show you the wireframes that then turn into the first like version, and then build on so on and so forth.
So you build your team out first, right?
Right.
You build your team. Sorry, you start the legal structure. You have the LLC. I'm assuming you copyright the name and all of that.
They were all there, yeah.
You build your team. This is before the tech. This is it's kind of running congruently at this point. Actually, no. So we haven't started building the full product yet. No. So all right, let's talk about that. How do you build the app?
Okay, how much time we got? No. So the thing about it is there's coding languages. There's things like, these were words I never even knew before I got here, where it's like, are you building in React Native? Is it Swift? Or what are you using Symfony on the back end? Like, there's so many things there, APIs. There's so many nuances that, once again, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So you're it's trial by fire at this point in time. So you go from there and you establish, your product manager, which is something that when you guys were talking about yours, I was like, oh, they didn't have a product manager.
No.
which is that's the guy who, yeah, maybe if you had someone here who had built an app before, who was running point for you guys, who knew like, oh, okay, these are the tranches, these are the check marks they have to get to. You guys are coding in React Native. Let me see, the GitHub. Like there was certain components like that where you need to building an app. The reason like a Zuckerberg can create an app in his dorm room is because there's only one of him. There's only one Zuckerberg. There's only one of these people. Steve Jobs needed his partner. All these people, it's so much bigger than just your entity. Apps are, in my opinion, every business is a team game. But in my experience, the app one is the most like everyone has to lean on each other at all times, because the minute it doesn't happen is the minute you're like, yo, you're on vacation? Like I can't get a hold of you. I don't know what's going on. The whole project stalls.
So you have, all right, so the project manager, right?
Yeah.
Where do you find a project manager?
So, I mean, for what we did is we were kind of lucky. So we start building the team out. We got Lee, who's on top of tech, as well as another guy, Scott. Those two individuals, ton of experience within that. So now they're manning the tech side as well as Nick. So those are like our three. Those are the three people on the tech part of this. The thing about building an app is the cost never, like it doesn't stop. So it's not like, oh, this is how much you paid, and then cool, the app is done. It's there's always you're paying AWS, you're paying for the database, you're paying all these things consistently. So across the board, it's never like, oh, you paid. Put it this way, you guys put 30,000 into the app,
Right.
It goes out. That's great, but that 30,000 is just
To get the
release.
app
It's
up.
MVP. That's the MVP. It's minimum viable product. You have to then from there, for the eternity of its existence. You have to pay upkeep. You have to pay to continue that, server costs, all of those things.
So from the 300,000, like how do we get funding for that?
So what we did is we thought about this and we said, hey, who would be the most, in general, who would be the most anti-Quiktract, right? Attorneys.
That's what, in my mind, I'm
Right,
thinking, yeah.
right. Like attorneys would probably be the most anti-Quiktract simply because, it may be seen as like taking from their practice.
Right.
So what we did is we leaned on, the past relationships that my partners had built with these really, really like awesome guys who saw the vision, who were like, hey, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
And so we built, like I said, we built from there. We ended up making them shareholders, brought them in, and that's what kicked everything off.
Who are these people? Lawyers?
Yes.
Okay. So you had investors,
Yes.
relationships from your partners.
Right.
They came in and they invested money into the
Right.
Yeah,
product.
they saw the vision. so,
They
yeah.
they got equity.
Right.
in it. Okay. Well, how can do you know any ideas for people that are looking to raise money that may not have?
Oh, 100%. No, 100%. I mean, I think it's before anything else, like the use what you got mentality, will take you further than anything, because if you think that the only way you're going to raise money is by leaning on a relationship or something like that, then you might miss your moment. You might miss the opportunity. I wish there was a rubric that said, hey, this is exactly how you go raise money. One thing that you want to do that I urge over anything else is focus on the idea before you focus on the raise. So focus on creating the best version of your idea, the most realized you possibly can.
Right.
Or if it's a slideshow, it doesn't matter what it is. You have to take it to the absolute limit of what you know how to do.
Yeah.
And then from there, like I said, I know this sounds cheesy and corny, and I know there's like a here's how to all of this, but at least in my experience and my story, is it was just if you act in a way that has a level of sincerity with this, and you are not afraid to ask questions, and it could be dumb. All right, well, cool. So who do I know in my life that may do something? Talk to them, build it out from there. Because what I did is all I had was passion attached to this.
Yeah.
I just said, once again, I can't reiterate this enough. I have no experience in this up to this point. All I did was say, this thing won't leave my head. I don't know what to do. And I kept building it until relationships, stack themselves up to say, okay, well, you know what? it's bigger than you because one, it has to be. No one's investing in me. That's not the point. They're investing in an overall idea. And then on top of that, people aren't going to invest their time in something that you want to do if you're not willing to go to the limit.
Right.
And so that's a huge component of this.
So it's like you said, use what you have. So even if I had $5,000, right, I got to build out to that 5,000, but I have to have something tangible.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's just the way it is in general is, like I said, I'm sure there's like romantic stories of people going to someone with a bunch of money and like, boom, I got this idea. And there's like the speech, the famous, the Carnegie speech, where he ended up kind of bringing together like the Steel Trust. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. He essentially, it was a speech that ended up being worth $100 million. But the thing is sure, those moments I would kill for one of those. Few and far between. I would absolutely love that. But you have to have something tangible. I've gotten it beaten to my head by my partners and everything through a whole bunch of time. But, talking is wonderful, but it's all about execution and everything. And
all right. So now you raised the 300,000. You developed the app, right? You have like 6 partners at this point?
So at this point, yeah. Right
6 partners. There. Okay. So now you have the app built, right? So now what's the next steps as far as how do you get the app into Apple?
Right.
How do you get the app into to sell it? How do you market the app? How do you monetize the app? How do you
Right. So in general, the first thing that happens is it's a ton of testing, and I can't stress this enough. It really is like a true labor of love.
How long is this process at this point?
August till March. So it was from August to March.
Almost 6-7 months. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it was supposed to be shorter, but like I said, it's if you want certainty in making an app, they don't go together. It's just part of the deal. But so that happens. That all gets put together. Tons of testing, tons of work, all of those things. At the time, keep in mind, I'm marketing. Like I'm building out the whole idea behind how we translate this to everybody. We have Nick flying from India to Belarus and back and things like that. Negative degree temperatures and things. We got Lee in Ohio being up at all hours. The time change, getting everything going, and so eventually, after a bunch of tests and whatnot, it's ready to go. It's ready to get put out into the App Store, Google Play, everything like that. From that point, you then go ahead and, once it's initial release, you got to wait for things with Apple because that's just the way Apple works.
Did they charge you for having it in the store?
So, what they do is Apple takes, I believe it's 30% of everything.
Yeah, I think
so. That's why, a lot of apps, their payment processing will be outside of the App Store. So, have you noticed, you can't pay for Spotify in the App Store. You have to go onto the desktop version in order to pay for premium. So, it's things like that.
Why is that?
Because they're kind of circumventing the process.
So, Apple doesn't get paid from that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Same thing with a Netflix and things like that. They're trying to, get outside of the paywall.
So take you to the desktop so the 30% stays on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and like I said, I might be wrong that Apple doesn't touch it at some point in time.
Yeah.
But that's what people try to do is they try to, they want to think of every possible way to, have, Apple. There's a reason they're the biggest company in world history. They know how to, accumulate from everything.
So Apple takes 30%. How much does Android take?
I don't think they take anything. I'm trying to think. I don't think they touch it the same way Apple does. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then they approve it. They have to. What's the criteria to approve an app?
It's pages and pages on pages of stuff.
No Quiktract for that.
Oh no, not at all. It's like I said, there's absolute pages on that. And it happens you'll get the little hit up that says it wasn't cleared or it was cleared, and then you got to figure out the exact reasons why and everything like that. And then you make whatever changes that need to get changed, whether it be something in the wording of how it's put out on the App Store or whatnot, and you just go from there.
So then, all right. So now it's in the App Store, it gets approved, but now it's 10 million apps in the App Store.
For sure.
How do you get your app noticed? How do you market your app? What's the process for that?
So one of the hugest things that I spoke on earlier before we even started the podcast is when you're just getting into the App Store, what I would not necessarily advise, because I'm still learning like everyone else is, but a huge part of this is, it's essentially a proof of concept at this point. You're trying to prove that there's some validity to your idea here. You're not going to be able to outmarket companies who are dumping thousands or millions of dollars into making sure that they're in everybody's eye line. But at this point in time, it's like taking a smaller bite and going, okay, cool. How do I exactly, we can't go from A to Z at this point. We still got to get to B before we get to that level where it's like, all right, sick, we got 1 million users now. So what we did is we said, all right, we want to focus on growing the community very much to earn your leisure. We want a quality number of users who are going to galvanize for us, right? It's because the thing about a Quiktract is that you need 2 people to make one. So at the end of the day, 1 user turns into 2 users. So essentially the most important thing here is, okay, let's continue to grow a community. Let's really champion our users. Let's really care about this, not just lip service. Let's really care about the community we're serving. And, then from there, we'll leverage certain platforms and we'll just build. But the most important thing is we're going to keep it as organic as humanly possible.
Yeah. So in the first 3 months of launching the app, was there a goal target for how many users you were trying to get?
So what we do is, we have like a growth rate. We essentially are we are essentially 12% each week is like, it's all about metrics. The game is all metric based. Okay. And it's all about keeping it healthy, and it's all about growing that entity at a marginal rate where, like I said, you don't want to be in a situation where you're looking around and it's bad if you don't have anybody, and it's bad if you have too much because you're not, you're not prepared. The database isn't necessarily built for that.
So how did you, all right, so the first, how did you get your initial first group of people to sign up for it?
So what we did is, first and foremost, just out of the mud, like from nothing, we beat our phones up. Okay, so another member of the team in the story that gets brought in a couple months back is my guy Blake. Now Blake, he comes from a sports agent background, former athlete. He gets brought into the fold as well. He kind of sees the vision and he's just like, yeah, absolutely, let's run. Yeah. And can't do it without him. So me and him first, we go like, well, we gotta get this out of the mud. We gotta beat up the phones. We gotta go to it. So we hit up every single person we know. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just what it is. Like 500-600 people, like initial downloads or whatever, just off that. And then from there, we had a strategy that said, okay, well, let's not lie to ourselves. Instagram is the world. That's where everyone is. That's where everything is at. Let's attack that as strong as we can. Let's get individuals who believe in this to champion this. And, that's just what we started to do. We started building that out. We started to get individuals who, whether they were athletes or entertainers, that believed in what we were doing.
Influencers.
Yeah. Well, influencers too. Yeah. And so we built that out. And the key is to keep it as organic as humanly possible.
So what's the budget for that?
that was free 99 to do all that. Like I said,
the influencers promoted it for free.
So what we did, what we did was we went ahead and said like, hey, look, we're building this out. Yeah. We have like at this point in time, there's no budgets for these things. Where it's just all muscle. It's trying to get to it. I have people who I'm very blessed and grateful to call my friends.
When we first met, I was like, when you were telling us the idea, I believe we were in the elevator, and I'm like, yo, I've heard this idea before, man. I'm like, yo, I heard it on the radio, or I know I heard this idea. And that's what I was saying. Like, it took me like until I got back to New York and I was on the Shade Room and I'm like, yo, that's Cole right there. Like, that's why I heard this. You were with Jill Scott.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. So I have a very good friend in Jill Scott. I used to be her assistant way back in the day.
Back in your music days.
No, shoot. It's even before that, it was weirdly enough like that. Those friends where you look and you're just like, how did we become friends? It's one of those where it's like literally, that's my ace, but I couldn't put two and two together how we got here. But so, you know, I remember talking to her about it when it was on pieces of paper. Like I remember coming to her and just being excited, you know, not for anything, just, hey, like this is what I'm doing. I'm going to see if this goes anywhere. And so she's always been down for the cause. She, you know, she believes in it, and she believes in me. And I remember, you know, I flew out to go see her, and just kind of was just proud to show her, like, you know, boom, this is the actual product I'm about to release. Yeah. Believe me, the craziest thing is about all this is, as much as you want to say that, like as much as like, look what I did, like this is crazy, is two things. One, you start appreciating the pronoun we so much more. You start appreciating like, nah, this is a we. Like there's no I in any of this, because I is an idea that you get to, you know, sit there and make on your computer at home and doesn't get to see the light of day.
Right.
I is an idea that you can put some time into and you can get traction. And there's a bunch of eyes that have done amazing, wonderful things. But in just my short time in the app world, you're like, this is a we thing by far.
So how'd you end up on Shaver?
Just we went ahead and we knew someone over there, and they saw the Jill thing, and they were like, "Oh, sure.
They did a feature on you, or
it was just Instagram posts."
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, that's where I noticed.
Yeah.
So Jill Scott was one of the influencers that helped you out.
Yeah.
Okay. Shout out to Jill Scott, man.
Oh, absolutely, big shout.
So you just told them about it. They believed in it. They did posts for you, stories.
Yeah, it was posts. So it was a couple things. So it was like they did a post. Kevin Love did a story.
You know Kevin Love?
Yeah, that was called that. My buddy Blake, he knows him really, really well. And so
UCLA guy.
Yeah. And so just, you know, coming up from there, like it's one of those things where it's like you said, scrambling. It's just like, it's the ingenuity part of it where you're like, hey, look, you got to get it however you can get it.
You got Kevin Love, Jill Scott.
That sounds like LA, right?
Yeah, no, we got, it's been so much going on. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I mean it was a host of other athletes. We have a good friend. She's an actress named Paige Hurd, who's been super supportive, and just built off from there. Like
they all did it for free.
It was one of those things where, you know, truth be told, money was it wasn't even a thought. Like it wasn't even about that. It was just like, hey, when can I post this for you, kind of thing.
That's love.
Because they believed in it.
It could be they believed in it. It could be that they like us. You know, whatever it is, I was grateful either way. So
that obviously sped up your growth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is. I mean, the growth model is very much, you know, understanding the platforms people have, and if someone believes in something, like I said, my whole thing is I can, you know, you can't make anybody do anything, and I never would try to. So I want to make sure that, you know, if people believe in it, I'm a champion you just like you champion me.
What's the revenue model?
So the way we work is Quiktract is a subscription-based service where it's free to always receive, no matter what, it's free. Mm-hmm. First 2 months, regardless of the fact it's free to do anything on the app. After the next 2 months, it's just $3.99 a month if you want to use all of the features attached to it. And the thing about Quiktract is like I said, it's not just about creating a contract. It's because when you create an agreement, like that's just the beginning. Like saying you're going to do the job is just the beginning of the job. What happens is the duration of the job to the completion of the job. So Quiktract is the first app that's a live agreement. So if anything changes, if, you know, deadlines have to be moved, scope of work changes, anything like that, you could actually request that amendment in real time. And the other person, if they agree to it, then it gets logged into the PDF document that's attached to everything, and essentially just, you know, keeps everybody on the same page.
All legal documents.
Yeah, you know, everything.
So they can be used in the court of law.
100%.
How do people know, like, as far as an app, right? How do you know how to price your app?
It's interesting because there's a ton of literature on that you can go through. A lot of it, I also less sexy answer. I think some of it's trial and error. You know, something's worth what people will pay for, and I think that, you know, we feel comfortable at $3.99 for the time being, just because it's, you know, you could run your whole business for the price of a cup of coffee essentially, and. You know, so like I said, I wish I had a sexier answer than that, but it's just very much where it's at.
All right. So, okay, can we talk about VCs? Because,
Sure.
All right, so the goal a lot of times in tech is to either A, sell your company, or B, if you really want to, go to the next level, you need massive amounts of funding, and most people don't have that. They can't raise that. So this is where venture capital firms come into play. Venture capital firms invest in tech companies, right? So yeah, you have some knowledge on VCs. Can you explain the process of VCs and funding rounds, A, B, stuff like that?
So I mean, yeah, my knowledge is growing by the day, but I'll explain the best I know how. So, in general, VCs, they invest in tech companies very much like you said. And the way that they invest, for each firm is different. They might have a certain focus in something where someone's like, we invest in green tech. We want things that are, environmentally and eco-conscious right now. So going into, looking at a VC firm, which is, once again, it's so far down the road from when you first create your app, what you're going to want to do is you want to focus on what they focus on. Because if you're, if the VC firm in your neck of the woods focuses on green, tech, and that's not your entity, they might not want to put that in a portfolio. So that may not be something that they care about, Yeah. So that's a very abridged idea of what you want to start looking into with VCs.
Yeah.
And then from there, I mean, look, what we're in the process of right now is like we said, we're in proof of concept phase. We are building out something that you hope to show, hey, this is where we are. This is what we do. It's a consistent formula that's working. Now we want to scale it. VCs and everything, it's all about scaling. Some people could be early stage, and that's wonderful if you could pull that off. Yeah. But for the most part, it's, they're the battery in your back that takes you from 50,000 to 500,000 users.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen people, especially in hip hop culture, with their own VC firms, like a guy like Nas.
Oh, we killing it! Yeah,
killing it.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And most of our our community are not even aware what venture capitalists are.
So, like, what's a different round?
Then you got your A, which is that's what we're in the process of going to right now. Then you got your B, C, and then eventually you get to the place where, the companies, if you look on Crunchbase and they're like, so-and-so invested $190 million, and it's, that's where that's the C and up kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. How would you find VCs?
The internet, but the thing is
Press tool.
Yeah, no, for real. I mean, like I said, it's one of those things where it's, one thing I would love to tell, listeners, especially because I'm just going through it right now, is you have the steps to get to a VC, like to get to that level. The boxes have to be checked before you could even go to the door. You know what I'm saying? And that's a huge component of all this is like the sexy, awesome answer is, hey, boom. So you want to go to Sequoia Capital, out in California, and you want to get them to invest $10 million into your app idea. Like, that's beautiful. Like, absolutely. I truly hope you do that. But you're not going in there with just an app freshly made with nothing attached to it or no show of traction or even an earlier round of investment attached to that. Like a lot of these places they're going to piggyback off of you. There's multiple firms can come in on a single round. Like that's the thing where you don't essentially just go to like, boom, this is the
idea.
Yeah, this is the idea. This is the one people are going to do it. Eventually, it gets big enough. Like people want to put in $40-50 million into something. Chances are there going to be a couple hands in that pile.
So you said you're at.
We're going to A right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Quiktract, what's the future for that?
So what we're doing right now is what we're very excited about is, all of us as a team, we kind of started realizing that a lot of these marketplace apps right now, they're starting to get a cut out of what everyone does. So whether that be making a logo or, putting up putting up someone's dresser or whatnot, they're starting to take cuts out of that. And they're not just normal cuts. They're taking like 30 to 40% out of that transaction just for kind of being the intermediary. And so what Quiktract wants to do and what we're doing with our next release is we want to make freelancing free again. So a lot of it comes down to, creating that marketplace directory that says, hey, if I'm looking for someone to, watch my dog, or I'm looking for a yoga instructor or something like that, you could look in there, see who's on Quiktract in your area who might do that thing. Mm-hmm. And if you guys link up through there, we don't touch it. We don't take any money out of that, because at the end of the day, it's a subscription-based service. So we're building it into like the community element. It's a huge thing to me, because look, I mean, something we talked about off air. Well, the reason I don't necessarily think it's fair for these, behemoth companies to essentially still take 40% out of, someone's transaction is because, let's just say for whatever reason that customer didn't have like the most stellar experience. Doesn't have to be bad. They could be tripping, but or something actually bad happens. That's going to come down on the provider's head, not on the company. The company, all right, on to the next, we'll grab someone else. Yeah. But, that is a huge component of this to me, because at the end of the day, let's say you got a dog walker, you use one of the dog walking apps, and you're like, boom, like I like this person to take my dog out. This is great. If you want to keep using that same person, those apps, they're automated, so they don't let you do that. Like it's whoever, you just kind of, it's like Uber, right? But let's say you like the guy you have, or this is the way I do something, like you can sideswipe the transaction fee. You can come together. You could have something legally binding with Quiktract that, for the duration of the agreement, you could also pay and get paid through the app.
So how can the people contact you? How can they find information on Quiktract?
So Quiktract is on Instagram, on everything. It's just Quiktract app. That's Quiktract app. We're on everything there. Quiktract.com. Find us in the App Store and Google Play. Those are, unless I forgot some of those are all the methods. Facebook.
All right.
Twitter, yeah. Every other one.
All right, cool. Well, first of all, we want to thank you for coming.
Of course, man. Appreciate it.
You're alumni now.
I appreciate you. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you for coming, man. We appreciate it. Tech is something that a lot of times we don't know anything about.
Right.
And it's something that even Andre Iguodala, he's doing a great job as far as introducing it to athletes. Things like that. But it's still like, I feel like people have no idea about any of this stuff. Like it's like a foreign language.
Oh, 100%.
And I said, that's one of the reasons why we wasn't successful, is that we just didn't know. We were just trying to figure it out as we went, and we failed. So, more information, knowledge is power.
100%.
So hopefully, even if somebody can just get a little bit of information from it, now you can actually learn and research, but you'll have some background on it, because you can't really learn about this stuff anywhere in like school and stuff like that for the most part, especially on the entrepreneurial side. They might teach you like technology, but as far as how to get it up and running, you don't know. You just kind of like got to watch YouTube or Google and just try to figure it out.
The putting two and two together is the thing that's lacking right now. Is they could, like I said, I could teach you how to code. I can't, but someone could teach you how to code, and that's great. But but from taking this and making that transition, you know what I'm saying? That's where people, that's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, that's a fact. So, all right, Troy, housekeeping.
Yeah, man. Patreon.com/earn your leisure. Patreon, we're growing every week. We get new members. And like I said, it's just a way to support the podcast so that we can, push certain initiatives in your area. We got a lot of people reaching out to us asking how could they help. Patreon is one of those ways. And it's good because we get to talk to our patrons directly. So we've had Shiana, who's been a great patron, and Vicky. We've scheduled a call with her. Charles, Tony, we spoke about last week. We had an amazing conversation with. And we got some new ones this week. So Mercy, shout out to her, and Dijon, and Brenda, who literally joined right before we came on to film this episode. And she said her sons listen, and I think one of them plays football and one wants to be a sports agent. So shout out to her. She had a small request that we're actually going to fulfill in the next couple of weeks. I don't want to give it away, but Brenda, we got exactly what you sent the message about. The episode is coming probably in the next 2 weeks. So shout out to her for joining, and everybody that's been supporting the podcast, whether through Patreon or through earnyourleisure.com, wearing the merch. Thank you for your support. It's growing, man. So thank you for growing with us.
Yeah. The merch is out. I got my emoji shirt on. Troy got the assets over liability.
Yeah, Cole's leaving with that shirt too.
I got mine over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For sure. So, we want to, thank you for coming once again. Of
course, man.
And the book tip of the week is going to be, since we talked about tech, Steve Jobs' biography. That was a great book. I read I forget the name of it. I think it was called Jobs. That's the name of it. It's called Jobs, and I highly recommend the book because it outlined his journey, and it's interesting. And he's a pretty complicated guy, but the tech, since we're talking about tech, I think that's an appropriate book for entrepreneurs, for people interested in business. Who he's the GOAT. He's Michael Jordan. So
I think he did something. Yeah.
Right?
If you're gonna learn from anybody, you should
I was gonna say that's the guy. Yeah, absolutely.
So all right, man. Thank you for rocking with us. We will see you next week.